My name is Corey Bishop, and this is Bones to Life. There's a moment in Psalm 18 where David says, "He brought me out into a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me." Joe's story carries that same heartbeat. A God who steps into tight, painful places and gently leads us into something wider, freer, and more whole than we ever expected. Today, you're going to hear a testimony that spans childhood confusion, hidden battles, perfectionism, anger, ambition, heartbreak, and the deep ache of trying to hold everything together on your own. Joe opens up about living with Tourette's, chasing worth through achievement, numbing pain through old habits, and wrestling with the weight of life not turning out the way he thought it would. But woven through all of it is a God who kept showing up. Through a roommate with a Bible, a quiet voice in the woods, through fatherhood, through loss, and through the steady love of a wife walking her own journey of faith. This is a story about a man who finally stopped running long enough to let God rescue him, and about what happens when that rescue changes everything. So let's listen in with open minds and open hearts as Joe tells his story. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this space tonight and for my friends that are here to share their testimonies. Lord, I ask that you bless this space, bless this room. Allow the Holy Spirit to dwell here so that we may have the wisdom and find the words to say that might reach the hearts that need to be reached to pull them back to you. Jesus, I ask that we may find the right people with these stories. And I ask that you keep everybody safe as they travel home from here tonight. Lord, I pray these things in your holy name. Amen. All right, Joe, it's your turn. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, it's all yours.
All right. So I'm going to start off by saying, I didn't grow up in a house that went to church. My parents were both forced to go to church as kids. My dad was Catholic. My mom was Protestant. And when I was younger, my mom did try to take us places. But she, the way she tells it now is there was always, they wanted to know how much my father made, so they knew how much the tithe was coming in. Or there was this question, there was never just an openness about church, but there was always some kind of caveat or something. And she never felt like it was something she wanted to be a part of. Until I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 12, my mom asked me, and my brother, do we want to go to church? My mom always believed, right? But she didn't believe in the building. She always had a problem with church. Church hurt, different things, right? You hear this story all the time.
Yep.
So she asked us as kids if we wanted to go. Now, we are, and were especially then, huge Buffalo Bills fans. And this was the late 80s, early 90s, and they were in the Super Bowl. And so my parents had season tickets. So they would go and leave us with babysitters. And they're like, "Do you want to go to church?" And I'm like, "No, I want to watch football. I want to be a football player. I want to be this. I want to be a fighter pilot. My favorite movie's Top Gun." So all these big dreams, aspirations. I'm a kid. So I'm like, "No, I don't want to go to church. I believe in God. I'm a good person. I'm ready to go." So I'm going to start with that caveat because, we had the Creaster mentality. Church and Christmas, we'd have to find a passage in the Bible. I'm like, "Mom, I have no idea what I'm looking at, but I needed to read a passage from the Bible." We would used to go to church on, for that. Most time we went to Catholic church. We went to Mass for Christmas and Easter. And that was about the extent of it, except for our neighbors who were they were deep in the church. They were there 5 days a week. And my neighbor's mom used to sit in the window and pull the shades down and watch the neighborhood and judge the neighborhood. And so I was like, all right, is this really, come on. I believe in Jesus. Great. I'm trying to be a good person. I should be fine. And so I want to start with that caveat because this kind of leads into everything else as we get in there. So I'm going to go back a little bit more to third grade. I was a boy. I had big dreams, aspirations, all these things. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. That was the thing I was going to do.
My question for you really quick before you continue is, did you have a really cool nickname picked out for when you were a fighter pilot?
I did not at this point. I just knew I wanted to be like Maverick in Top Gun. My dad was in the Air Force as an air traffic controller. And so when we lived in Eglin, which is down in Pensacola, Florida, Every once in a while, I got to drive by the base with them, see the B-52s, the F-16s, all the things. And so like fighter pilot was in my blood, and Top Gun had come out when I was 3. I saw it in theaters. Still my favorite movie. I will say Top Gun Maverick is it may be better. I'm not even gonna lie. It may be better. It's just super good. But that was my dream. I was always going to fly a plane. I was going to do this thing, right? Around 3rd grade, I started unknowingly at first, making different squeaks and grunts and noises, and getting kicked out of class for being the class clown. Now, I was an A student. In fact, like I was really good at school and had no problem. But the teachers saw everyone laughing at me, even though I didn't know what I was doing, and started kicking me out of class because I was being disruptive. So we went and got tested. I grew up in Rochester, New York, so I went to Strong. And I was diagnosed at 8 years old with Tourette syndrome. I know they have different levels of it now and all different things, but at that time, that's what I had. And so at 8 years old, I was told that the way I took it was, I'm not normal. I'm doing things I can't control. And because I can't control them, people see me differently. I'm getting kicked out of class. All these things are happening. And at the very least, I won't be able to be a fighter pilot or probably most of the dreams that I have, because this is a neurological thing. And I didn't even understand that word. There's things I can't control. So I remember coming home that day and asking my mom for a knife to kill myself. And my mom, I'm 8 years old. Like it was a really intense thing. And my mom ran up the stairs and slapped me and said, I'm not going to let you do that. And we cried it out and everything, like got through the day. But at that age, my whole life changed, where instead of just being kind of like a free, normal person, to be able to kind of experience life and maybe do the thing I want to do or whatever, I kind of lost some self-worth at that moment. So at that point, I started seeking worth from other people. And so I became a perfectionist. I became the person who overthought every situation. And, obviously this expands as you get older, right? And you get into puberty in high school and you're trying to fit in. And so imagine that being somebody who has this and is trying to seek worth and value from people, and you're going through high school and junior high where everything is chaotic and people are all over you for all different things, right? And so the blessing with this all was that it was such a mild case that I actually learned to control parts of it. So I went from grunts and squeaks and clicks and all these things to just blinking heavily, doing some different breathing things. I was able to feel it and make it less noticeable. Until my freshman year, when going into that summer, I had a swearing problem where I had to say 3 swear words at the end of every sentence. And I actually made it high pitched and different. So you thought I was just squeaking or something. This is something that I really dealt with. And, going into school in the fall was worse because I was nervous going to school. Coming out of school because of allergies, it was worse. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of things that went with that. But I had devoted myself to being able to figure things out. I would overthink situations I was going into to make sure that if I got in a position where people would come at me, make fun of me, whatever, because I needed their worth and their value, that I'd be able to, I overthought every situation. I had 1,000 ways to get out of something to get back in people's good graces. I would always try to have an answer for something, because if I could give somebody an answer for something, then I had value. And then, I could be seen as somebody of value, because that was something that was lacking. And, I say all this with the caveat that I had a really good home. My parents loved me to death. They loved my brother to death. They were always encouraging. They always provided everything we needed. I never felt unloved. I never felt worthless at home. That was not a thing. It was something that I had kind of created for myself because of Tourette's. And because, wanting to fit in and just all those things. And so I went through high school with this, and, you kind of get pegged in a certain position. When you're in your school, you've grown up with these kids your whole life. And so you're known in a certain place, and no one ever made fun of me for it. In fact, I had more people come to defend me when new people would come to the school than anything. I remember getting called up on the wrestling team in 8th grade to varsity. And some of the 9th graders were trying to pick on me. And one of the seniors found out that I had Tourette's. And this Nate Beams, I'll never forget Nate Beams. He had like the butterfly back where he would flex and he picked these kids up by his underwear. And you don't mess with Joey. It was so like
That's
people,
awesome.
people did not treat me poorly, but like I always felt like I had more. There was more to me than just what people knew and what I allowed people to see. So I went to college and I flipped the script. Well, I'm going somewhere that no one knows me, and I'm going to be unashamedly me. And, and I could control the Tourette's to a point where no one knew. In fact, most of my friends at college had no idea I had it. But throughout this time, like, I didn't really focus on God. I didn't know God. I would say I believed. I thought, yeah, I believe I believe in Jesus, but I have no idea who Jesus is. I don't know anything about it being a relationship. I don't know anything about if I need to be baptized. I was baptized as a kid in the Catholic Church. Great. I'm covered. I'm saved. We say the prayers before Christmas and Easter, the Catholic prayer, bless us, O Lord, for these thy gifts you're about to receive. It's still ingrained in my head. But I never really talked to God. I never knew I could. I never knew what church was, but I did know that every time we went to church, it was either Catholics that, I'd walk into the Catholic Church and feel uncomfortable. I didn't feel like I belonged. And I never felt like they wanted me to belong, right? Like, you're new. I don't, and, you do the whole say peace to the neighbor next to you. And it always felt fake. They put the smile on and, I don't know. It just never felt right. I felt guilty in the Catholic Church. And then I would go to my friend's Protestant church and they were just knocking Catholics because of what happened with the priests and the altar boys at the time in the 90s. And so I was like, why would I want to be a part of this? Like, this isn't a group. Like, why am I trading one set of rules for another set of rules? Why am I trading what the world is living by for something that's not a God I want to serve? I had no idea. So I went through college on my own reins and doing whatever I wanted and cocky and arrogant. And I knew everything because I went to school because I couldn't fly planes. I decided I would build them. So I went to school to become a rocket scientist. I am a graduate of Clarkson University with an aeronautical engineering degree. Missiles, spacecraft, planes, ships, you name it. Like, I learned how to build them in college. It took me 5 years, but I got through it. And so being a fixer, somebody who always wanted an answer to solve problems, got the education behind it. So now I'm like, I used to walk into rooms and I would start judging people based on what I thought. And it wasn't to be like, it wasn't to come at people. It was more of like, where's the crowd that I want to be involved with so that I can have the best position in my life? And I got out of school and I didn't get a job in aeronautical engineering because my grades weren't good enough. And I came out of school having to push my loans in forbearance because I couldn't afford them. And I owed like $1,400 to $1,600 a month on my school loans because I came out with $140,000. And after we paid some off, I was left with $85,000. I had no way to pay it. And they wanted me to pay in 12 years and I couldn't. And just all these things start piling up, right? I'm still very angry because life isn't working out the way that, the world says it should. I end up getting a job with a construction materials testing company where I'm working 80, 90 hours a week, like 65 to 70 hour week is an easy week where I'm working nights into days into nights, triples, doubles. I'm driving all over Kingdom Come and, like I'm just a QC guy. So I'm not making much money. I'm working my butt off to the point where I had to live with 2 coworkers. If I wasn't living in the company housing, when they finally kicked us out, 3 of us had to live together in order to afford something. I had a girlfriend that it was all right, but I knew she wasn't the one. The job started to wear on me and, I couldn't afford anything except for some marijuana once in a while that me and my roommates would literally play video games, eat junk food, and get high. That's what we did for fun because we couldn't afford anything else. And one day I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm not okay with this. I had all these dreams and aspirations. I had all this idea for myself, and I worked my butt off to get places, and I'm here. This doesn't make any sense. And so, it started to wear on me. I started to get bitter, and I started to drink more and party more and all these things to try to numb it away. And then one day I wake up, and one of my roommates is reading the Bible on the couch. And I double took for a minute, and I was like, what are you doing? He's like, listen, man. He's like, I know I don't talk about this much, but when I'm struggling, I go to the Word. I want to see what God says about it. It's like, I believe in God. I may not show it. I may not practice it outright, but I believe and I used to go to church. And so I read the Bible and I double took for a minute. And I went in my room and I opened my drawer where my King James Bible was, because that's what was given to me in 96 from my parents or whatever. And I was like, huh. And I pulled it out, but I never opened it. A little while later, I don't know exactly when, I'm getting sent from the main hub out towards Buffalo to do precast. So I went from working on the roads to building the precast structures that they install on these jobs. It's like you'll build bridge beams to set in place for a bridge. If you're not making out of steel, use concrete. And so I was in charge of inspecting those. So I went home. When I got sent home, I thought about that Bible again. And I was like, okay, so the first night I remember going upstairs in my parents' house into my old room. Actually, it was the new room because I had just moved. And I grabbed my Bible and I started to pray. And I said, Lord, I need to know if you're real. I have all this education. I have all these ideas that I think is right. I have been trying to live by the rules of the world and all the things for so long, and it's not working, and I don't know why, because I'm doing everything the world tells me to do. I'm following everything that I think I should be doing. I'm watching out for me. I'm trying to do the best for me, but I'm also working my butt off here, and I'm doing this, and like I am getting nothing that I'm supposed to be getting or thinking I'm supposed to be getting. And so like I've tried it my way. I need to know if you're real. I've always said I believe in you, but now I need to know you. And I started reading in Matthew, and I read a chapter a night. Every night while I was at my parents' house, getting up early in the morning to travel to Buffalo or travel down to Olean to do precast, and thinking about it on the way. And I was reading King James, and, you know, like we talked about earlier, I say read what you can read because there's no sense trying to figure out words and then try to figure out what it's saying. But God was showing me what it meant. And I started to see things. I had never read it, never went to church, but I started to see truth. I started to see God. I started to see his heart. And I had questions like, why don't I see healing and casting out demons and all these things, raising people from the dead? Why don't we see this on a regular basis if this is real? So I had questions and I had things. But I also started to like recognize the truth in it. And I remember I'm a hunter. And I remember going to this spot with my brother and sitting in a tree stand, and, you know, some of the best part of hunting is taking that nap. You know, you're all excited, you get there and you start to get quiet and you get tired, and I started dozing off. But I remember as I'm getting there, I'm like, God, like, I want to hear your voice. Say my name, do something. And as I'm falling asleep, right before I go out, I hear my name, Joseph, in a voice I never heard before, but sounded so familiar. And I remember hearing that voice, and then this huge chocolate antlered 8-point comes out of the thicket, and I'm like, what? And I'm grabbing my bow, and the deer ends up getting freaks. I can't get my bow off the hook, and I stop, and I'm like, what was that? I'm like, was that my grandpa? Because I'm hunting, and I hunted with my grandfathers, and I thought maybe it was one of them. You know, they brought the deer to me, and I missed it, and I blew it. And then on the way home, I'm like, no, that was something different, because I don't remember that voice. And it took a couple of days, but I realized that it was probably God. But I didn't have confirmation, but it was probably God. And I never got to hear it again for a long time. But I still believed. I didn't go to church because I didn't have to go to church according to what my mom had taught me. So I was just kind of living things out, doing precast. Then I get a call from a friend to come back towards the Newburgh area, but it's actually Rockland County, to work on the Tappan Zee Bridge. Another offer from the precast plant to help run one of their plants out in Depew, New York, or Deposit, New York. And I was like, which one do I do? And my aunt, who I was living with my aunt and uncle at the time, they were actually like, go back to the Tappan Zee Bridge, make a boatload of money, and then do whatever you want. You're single, you can do whatever. I'm like, you're right. So I went in interviewed for the job, got the job, met Diane. She says I was a pain to her, but I thought she was a pain in the butt too. I understand why I was a pain in the butt to her, because my friend who got me the job was always like, Joey K could do this and Joey K could do that. And she just heard my name so many times, she didn't want to hear it anymore. And there was other things. Like I was a little rough around the edges. But got on the tap, totally different company, a company that actually cared. And I got to see like things could be better. But since being in the Buffalo area and getting away from my original place and out there and started reading the Bible, I started praying to God, like, God, I believe in you. Like, I want a better career. I want to actually have a purpose for my life, not to be just slaving away at something that I hate. I want a family. I want to meet somebody. Like, Lord, I'm going to put these on the table. Like, this is what I want. And I tell you what, I get this new job on the Tappan Zee Bridge with this new company. I get like a $10 an hour raise, and I get benefits, and I get all these things. And the job isn't that hard. It's great. Like, I love inspecting. And then shortly after that, I meet Diane, like actually meet her, not just become a coworker, but like she says in her testimony, we started doing the Whole30, and there's a lot of prep work. And so we started prepping, and next thing you know, sparks are flying, like she says, and we get together. And so now we're dating, and we're hiding it from work because we don't know how this is going to go. So it was like 3 or 4 months. We didn't tell a soul. We were together pretending we weren't together. But we were seeing each other every night. We were together. Like, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was like that cat and mouse game. But the whole time I'm like, God, you're answering my prayers within like a year or two of me praying them. Like, this is amazing. And then we get pregnant, and I'm like, Lord, like, this is awesome. I'm still not going to church. I'm still kind of doing my own thing, believing in God. And then Ellie is born. And everything changed for me in that moment, right? Like the first moment of fatherhood, when she was pulled out with the C-section and they pushed her over the thing, and we locked eyes, and I swear she didn't even look at her. Like, Ellie was looking at me and I was looking at her. It was over. And I realized that this life is more than just me. Like, there is somebody else now. Like, not that I didn't love Diane by any stretch of the means. We were married. Like, I loved her. I would die for her, everything. But when I saw Ellie, my life changed to a point where, like, it's not just about me. There is something here that, like, there is no condition at all. There's nothing I have to force. There's just love here. I didn't have to get to know my daughter. I loved her the moment she came out. And I knew that there was something big with God. And I looked at her and I said, listen, like, I think we need to go to church. And we're living in Nyack. I'm like, I want to have the best opportunity for my daughter to, like, live the way she's supposed to live. And, you know, like, we can be better. Like, let's figure it out. And we kept saying we were, and we never did. As she says in her testimony, after Ellie, we had a miscarriage. What was the timeline? It was like 9 months after she was born, we got pregnant again. And then it was the 9-week ultrasound. And as my wife had said in her testimony, like, the baby never grew. In fact, I remember that it was an egg sac with nothing formed in it. And at first we're like, no way, you just don't know what you're doing. And then the other midwife came over and confirmed it. And it was a couple of weeks of trying to figure out what was going on there. And I will say this, like, it didn't hit me the same as it hit Diane. Because when I heard that when I heard it was just the egg sac and nothing had formed in it, in my head, it was like, okay, like, it started, but it never took. And God, maybe, I don't know. It didn't hit me the same way it hit her, but I was with her through everything. I was trying to support her through everything. And it wasn't like it wasn't like it was something that didn't matter. It just, I came to terms with it in a different way. And then and I'll be honest, like, that was an accident. We weren't planning that one. And so the next one we wanted to plan. And so we decided to move to Pennsylvania and come up here to be closer to her parents, because it was hard enough with Ellie. You know, Diane had postpartum. And so, like, after Ellie, our life got flipped around in a lot of ways. We had only known each other for a little while, and now we're married and we have a kid, and who we used to be, and all the sparks and the honeymoon phase and all that. All of a sudden we had a baby, and there's postpartum, and now I don't know who she is. And she doesn't know who I am. So, like, now I'm like, man, God, you gave me this woman and I love her, but who is this? Like, what is, like, and then there were stresses, and I started drinking again, like I did in college when I was the president of the rugby team, or the drinking team with the rugby problem. And going out after work and partying with the boys, and, like, because coming home was stressful. And I didn't realize that at the time. I was still learning that I was a father and a husband, and that it wasn't just about me, that I couldn't just go off gallivanting and expect everything to be okay when I got home, because their lives were turned upside down too. But Ellie was, you know, a newborn. She was a puddle. You just left her there and she didn't roll around. It can't be that hard. Yeah. Except now you have a life that, you know, lives or dies because of what you're doing. And I remember her saying, like, if I get her to 1 year, everything will be okay. So they're just little things that pop up. But, so let me go back. We moved to Pennsylvania and we get pregnant, and we're a little nervous because the last one. And so we get that 6.5-week ultrasound, And I remember it was towards the end of the day and they didn't have like a real tech to look at it. But the lady who was in charge of the tech was reading it. And she's like, oh yeah, there it is. Everything's good. And we saw a healthy, living, moving fetus. And so we went to Michigan to visit my parents and tell them the good news. And we showed them pictures and everybody was happy and everything was good. And we come home and she starts spotting. I have to say at this point, I wasn't working. When I left the Tappan Zee Bridge, when we got together, she was the lead for the project, for the area we were working on. And then when she got pregnant and had the baby, then she was working from home, but she couldn't be the lead. So I became the lead because I was the lead inspector. It just worked out. And so when I left the job, we were in the closeout phase of the Tappan Zee Bridge. And after about 3 times trying to close out that job, I was done because they kept asking for more. My bosses kept trying to give them more. And I got an offer out of nowhere from the office in Pennsylvania. The guy calls me up and says, hey, I hear you're like, I don't know. I hear you're pretty good. I don't remember how it worked out, but he was going to offer us work out here. So we were like, hey, let's check out Pennsylvania. And so this is where we started to come, but they actually didn't have work for me. So I was out of work for 5.5 months. And she was still working on the Tappan Zee Bridge remotely from our home. And so I had a lot of time on my hands. And not being able to provide for my family, I started getting back into things I shouldn't have. I started drinking again. I wasn't brewing beer at the time. I was brewing beer on the tap. But I would call up my old roommates and go grab a bag of weed every once in a while and, try to numb some of the things that were going on. So we get pregnant. Everything's good. We come home, she's spotting. And I remember taking her to go pick up from my friend because she was distraught. It was happening again. And throughout this whole time, all I was trying to be was strong for Diane. I didn't feel like I could show emotion, number one, like boys don't cry, right? Growing up, like you're tough. I used to have more emotion as a kid, getting in a fight, cry, my dad would come, but as I got older, I realized what my dad was trying to tell me, like, don't cry, like, suck it up. You're a man, be a man. And so during this process, I was trying to be a rock for her through this process because I knew how devastating it was for her, because I knew how devastating it was for me, but I didn't want to be a puddle that she had no one to go to. So I was trying to be this rock, this iceberg for her. And in this process, I didn't understand that I was coming off very cold. I thought I was being strong. I thought I was supporting her. I thought I was being a shoulder for her to cry on and through this process. And then I'll never forget, she goes upstairs. It's like, I don't even know if it was a little over a week or a week after we got the news that she was having a miscarriage. She's upstairs, and so there's a bathroom at the top of the stairs, and she calls down. Our daughter's a 1.5 years at this point. And she calls down, and she had been bleeding, but it was heavier. And so she goes, I'm going to have to pass this baby. It's happening. And I went from trying to be a rock to about to implode. And I was not doing it in front of her or Ellie. And I remember looking at her and said, I got to go to the garage. And I left our 1.5-year-old daughter in the living room, and I left her upstairs to kind of fend for herself because I wasn't breaking down in front of her. And I went to the garage, and I remember getting very angry. I told her I was going to go clean it up. And I was very angry, and I put on metal music because I was a metalhead. And I put on one of my favorite bands, Killswitch Engage, and they got this song In a Dead World. And in this lyric, it says, it's not too late to save yourself. And it kind of fit my old mentality of saving myself, right? I can do this. I've overcome Tourette's. I've overcome all these things. But I remember in that moment hearing that, and I'm like breaking down crying. Like I'm bawling. I am a puddle right now on the floor of my garage. And I remember this push to pray. And I didn't feel like I had prayed in a while. Like I'd been praying for this situation. I've been praying that God would help this pregnancy, that we wouldn't have a second miscarriage for my wife, and that things would get better. But I remember sitting in that moment as I'm about to rage out and start breaking things in my garage to pray. And I started praying, and Jesus met me in that garage. I remember feeling this embrace hit me. Just slowly, like 2 arms coming to hug me and put my head on his chest. And I remember hearing the words, "It's okay. I've got this. It's okay." And everything just, it didn't make sense, but I knew it was God. And I knew that everything was going to be okay. And I remember in that prayer, I'm like, God, I just want your will to be done, but I want my wife to be okay. And I want us to be okay. Not knowing what had been happening with how I was acting and how she was seeing me as this rock who she thought was just being cold. And so God is comforting me in this moment. And all of a sudden I feel something shift and I started to see things. And I literally started to see me. And all I could say, it was like through the eyes of her, of my wife, and seeing myself trying to be strong and not show emotion, and some of the things that I was saying and how I was acting through this miscarriage. And I started to feel this chill, and I realized how cold I was being and not recognizing it, but starting to feel like there was problems in our marriage because of how I was coming off in this, because this is the second miscarriage. And the first one, it didn't hit me the same way. And now this one's happening and I'm just being strong, but she's not taking it that way. To her, it feels like I don't care. And I remember snapping out of this and just getting up off the floor and running into the house. And she was on our couch and I just got in front of her and I just started crying. And I remember I looked at her and she goes, "What are you doing?" Because that wasn't me. I was the president of the rugby team. I was a tough guy. I was trying to be strong for her. And so she had never seen this side of me. And I looked at her and I said, "You have to let me do this. I have to get this out in front of you because if I don't know what's going to happen. I have to do this." And so she let me finish crying. I just kept saying how sorry I was, how I didn't realize how I was coming off to her. And we had this moment. And I remember that. So she ended up passing the fetus. And we didn't want to just bury it because we live in the woods and I didn't want an animal digging this thing up. And so we put it in a box and we burned it in our fire pit. We don't use that fire pit anymore, but we can't get rid of it because of the significance of it. It's not a good spot. It's on a hill. It's not safe. It's a bunch of rocks that I found in the yard and put together, but it is such a significant place. It's going to remain. And I remember sitting there and just staring off and going, nothing is the same. And I don't know if you understood at that time what I was talking about, because we just had the miscarriage. You just went through that, if it was a negative thing or what. But like, I had told her what happened to me. Like, as terrible as that was, there was something amazing that had just happened. And I couldn't wrap my head around it, but I knew nothing was going to be the same. Nothing looked the same. Nothing felt the same. And I knew that there was something. I knew that God was real, that he met me there, and he met me in my lowest point, because I was the guy who had all the answers. I had the strength to overcome things. And at that point, I was helpless. You know, when your wife's having a baby and you're sitting there going, what can I do to help? And there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Now imagine that when your wife is losing a child. And I know, like, and it was the second one. And then you're wondering, are we ever going to be able to extend our family? And so it was just a helpless moment. And God was there. And I heard him. And I felt him. And I knew that he existed. So nothing was the same. And then, you know, she gets this hair sample test before we start trying again to see what's going on with her body, because now she's thinking there's something wrong with her and she needs to figure this out. And she comes back and tells me about Mom Paulback Church. And I was like, let's go check it out. I'm like, I want to make sure that they're good, but like, let's check them out. And we walked in and it was nothing like any church I had ever been a part of. I remember Jeff Compton welcomed me and I felt like a human being. It was just a normal conversation. There was no pretense behind it. There was no, what do you do for a living, as far like with anything behind it. It was just, hey, how you doing, man? We're so glad you're here and welcome. And we've got this here. And it was just a genuine moment. And then we go in, I met Judy quickly and we chatted and we went in, and there's Ken, and he's like a couple years older than me, but not much. And he's leading worship. I didn't know he was the pastor at the time, but they got the words on the screen. I'm singing songs I'd never seen before, and I'm crying because I'm like feeling Jesus. And then Ken starts preaching, and it's not just a monotone voice speaking, but it's somebody who's trying to bring you into a relationship with God. And I was like, yeah, I just really knew him. It really felt like this is what I want. Like, I want to know God. And he talked with me afterwards. And from there, nothing was the same. Nothing ever will be the same. In that moment, like, all the things that I thought could be true became true. And God really showed who he was. Somebody who loves us, who cares for us, who wants to know us. And from then on, I've just had this crazy faith where literally, like, I can do a multi-day fast just by jumping in. God tells me to quit my job and go plant a church. I'm like, yeah, where are we going? Let me talk to my wife first. But like, I have that crazy faith that says that, like, I know God will show up even when I don't know what it's going to look like at the end of it. But it doesn't matter what it looks like at the end of it, because he's got us. So yeah, that's a lot of it. It has grown and changed. But like, if I could tell somebody one thing, it's that, I can look back on my life and see all the places that God was, even when I didn't want to believe that he was there. Like when I got diagnosed with Tourette's, God had a different plan for me. He had a different struggle for me so that I could relate to people in different ways that I would have never seen at that age, or even in my 20s, or maybe even my 30s. That, like, everything has a purpose and it's for its good, but God is with you. And if you don't believe he's with you, he's pursuing you the whole time. And if you're willing to look at the hard things, and instead of just saying, why does everything bad happen to me? But look at those hard things and say, where is God in this? Or where could God be in this? Or like, what am I missing? You'll start to see those little things that point to him. And I'll tell you what, like, if you haven't found a church, go find a group of people who are just going to love you for you and show you the love of God. Because that's why I planted a church. I want people to know Jesus. I want people to experience him in real time, not just, oh, I read this precept in a book and I got to follow this precept. It's not an exchange of rules. It's not an exchange of laws. It's a relationship. And when you get to that point of knowing that it's a relationship, it will change your life and change how you see others, change how you interact with others, because it's not about you, it's about him. You won't know that until he's changed your life, because once he did that to me, whatever you got to throw at me, God's with me. And I know I'm secure in him. So let's go. Let's go.
That's awesome. I didn't even have to ask the question. You just rolled right into it. I love it.
I picked up the cue before.
No, that was great.
Oh, can I add one more thing?
Oh, yeah, you can absolutely add one more thing.
So after, I call that my saving moment in the garage. I had read parts of the Bible, I had believed, but I hadn't known him. So in 2018 is when I officially got saved. It's when I officially knew God. And after going to Wallenpaupack Church for a little bit and understanding more of God and his love and his rules and what they mean for us, actually, not just their rules, they're to help us be sanctified and be better. I realized that I'd only been baptized through the Catholic Church, but I never made that choice. I never made that outward declaration. And so I talked to Ken. We were going through partnership, I think. And I said, I want to be baptized. So I got baptized on my birthday, August 10, 2019, and told this story on camera with just Ken and my family there. Short version, that 2 to 4 minute version. I think it was 4.5 minutes. And then they played it at church. And I didn't want to say it at church because it had only been a year and it was still really raw. And I remember crying through that whole testimony and going, I will never be able to do this in front of a group of people. So can you videotape it and then you can show it? And the people that heard that story, there was a lot of people that came up and chatted with us afterwards who didn't know any of that, or who I was, or where I had come from, or where even that, we were just there all of a sudden, and we were in it. I was asking questions. I was there, but yeah. So I got baptized officially and publicly devoted my life to Jesus in 2019. And I always tell people that if you're going to take that step, be bold about it. Be bold about it. Tell people why. Like, don't just go in the water to go in the water. Like, tell them why you're doing this. Like, that's the whole point of it. It doesn't save you. It's a proclamation. Like, it's supposed to tell people your story. So somebody may go, and that's the whole point of this podcast, right? It's like people would hear this story and go, oh man, I've lived through that. This person understands, and God met him in this. Maybe I'm seeking the wrong things. Maybe I haven't thought of this, or I felt that and I just couldn't quantify what it is. But now hearing this, maybe there is, and just go a little deeper and seek a little harder. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else, but it's all about Jesus, man.
No, you're right.
He's changed my life.
That's perfect. As we close, I'm reminded of Paul's words in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Joe's testimony is a living picture of that truth, that God doesn't wait for us to be strong, composed, or put together. He meets us in the weakness we try so hard to hide, and he builds something new from the pieces we thought were beyond repair. If Joe's story spoke to you, if you've ever felt unworthy, unseen, overwhelmed, or stuck in cycles that you can't break, hear this. God is not intimidated by your weakness. He is drawn to it. He's near to you in it. And he is more than able to redeem every chapter you thought was wasted. I'm really grateful for Joe's honesty and for the way that he shows that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about finally letting God in. It's about surrender and grace. It's about the kind of transformation that starts quietly and ends up changing an entire family, an entire future. So if Joe's story moved something in you, please share it with a friend. And be sure to drop a follow over on Apple or Spotify and leave a rating or review. It truly means a lot to the heartbeat of the show. And if you have your own story to tell, please reach out. bonestolifepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, let's keep these dry bones rattling.